We will now discuss, as we earlier discussed, about different biotechnology-based approaches to improve the certain characteristics of fruits and vegetables. So in more detail, we'll see some of these kind of aspects. For example, these factors that affect the reducing sugar in potatoes, because this is one of the very important quality parameter that has to be considered to produce potato varieties. As you might be aware that after cereals, potato is the most dominant crop. It's grown world over in very huge amount, massive amounts, and it is also consumed as a staple food in many countries as well. So this is a highly important crop, and the quality of starch is very much a determinant of the quality of end product and the price of these potato cultivars or varieties that have got these desirable attributes. So generally the problem that arises during the processing of potato is the color development within those potatoes, that is due to the reaction that is known as Maillard reaction. And this Maillard reaction occurs when there are different carbohydrates, or especially reducing sugars such as glucose and fructose. It acts with certain amino acids in condition in which the potato is subject to heating. And as you know that most of the potatoes, they can be consumed as potato chips or French fries or products that are fried in nature. So that would be utilizing higher temperature. And higher temperature, these constituents do come together, they react together, they produce this Maillard reaction. This is the browning color, which is not desirable. This is dark brown color. This also affects the taste of the product as well. So you would be getting some of the bitter aftertaste or bitter taste in these products, which is not desirable. So that is why such cultivar would have lower market value, because they cannot be used for such applications in the food industry. So some of the things that now, because as you know that these reducing sugars are more linked toward this browning reaction. So these reducing sugars can be produced by two different reasons. It is called as low temperature sweetening, because when these crops are subjected to low temperature, the starch is broken down to produce more reducing sugars. These reducing sugar have higher sweetness levels, so your variety would become sweet. So as you might be aware that potato do come in different varieties that are sweet or more bland in nature, and they are recommended for different cooking purposes as well. So generally, when the potatoes are harvested, they have to be stored, because they would have not very long shelf life. They had to be stored at 10 degrees C. And this temperature at this storage, this would be producing some of the sweetening effect as well. The second mechanism in which is important for looking at this level, reducing sugar level, is the metabolism of starch in tubers, like how this metabolism occurs. And we'll discuss these two variables in detail now. So if you want to avoid this Maillard reaction, as I said, this is an undesirable reaction that takes place during the frying or cooking operations. So one of the solution is to store these potatoes at 10 degrees C temperature. And this 10 degrees C temperature would be actually good in a way that it reduces the Maillard reaction, but it would encourage the sprouting of potatoes, and which is again, once the potatoes start sprouting, they are not useful for any industrial application. So that means their shelf life is reduced. Now, the scientists or food technologists have another option to use some anti-sprouting chemicals that would be actually stopping this mechanism of sprouting. But as you again know, there's another factor that if we use more chemicals or food additives in fresh fruits such as potato, root fruits or vegetables, they are not generally preferred by the consumer, because they would prefer to have more natural product, not having many food additives or sprays or different chemicals that are utilized. So now what we have, the option that is left with such consumer, because the consumer preferences are changing. So we need to select certain species or cultivars that have got that have low reducing sugar present in them. So and we would also be interested to control this sprout growth, as well as this senescent sweetening or sweetening that is related with the age of the food products. We would also be interesting to reduce these quick shelf life, because if there's more respiration and more metabolic reactions taking place, that is also related to the attack of different disease, as well as bacterial and fungal pathogens as well. So they would be spoiling your food very quickly. So if we have something like desirable attributes in such cultivars, in which they would not be producing any high amount of reducing sugars, they would be more marketable. And another factor, they would not be applied with these sprout inhibitors. But there can be some disadvantages that can be related with low temperature sweetening. This could also produce more brown color in the final product. The mechanism is quite complex, and many of the variables are not very much known, like what actually causes this breakdown of starches, how these breakdown takes place, what are the mechanisms, what are the genes that are available which are linked with these kind of metabolism, which do produce these reducing sugars in these products, and what are the pathways. So if we talk about the second factor, this is how the metabolism of tuber actually affect the reducing sugar. Generally, potatoes would have 60 to 80% starch, and sugars are initially not very high amount of sugar. Say it's only about 3% of the sugars that are present, as compared to 60-80% starch on the dry base conditions, or dry bait basis. The principal event that happens in LTS, or low temperature sweetening, is the cold induced synthesis of sucrose. So there's low temperature that would be producing more sucrose, because there's no other source that can produce sucrose other than starch. So starch would be actually degrading to produce sucrose during these cold temperature storage. And this generally happens at initial stage when you start cold storage. Generally, these potatoes are stored at 1 degree to 3 degrees centigrade for a few months, especially 2 or 3 months. So they would be in this cold storage. There's maximum conversion of tubers into sucrose that would be actually producing this sweetening in these tubers, which is not, as I said, it's not desirable. And it is very consistent. Low temperature, you keep on storing, and the rate of sucrose content, it keeps rising during the storage condition. It would also depend upon what cultivar we are talking about, what are the locality, the condition of storage, what are environment factors. So they are all basically very much relevant, and this again would term the quality of chips or quality of food products that we are making out of these tubers. So generally, once we have taken these potatoes, they come out after cold storage. They have to be conditioned at 18 degrees C for some time, so that they adjust to the new temperature, new storage temperature. So at this temperature, when we condition these potatoes, there's a reversible reaction that would be actually converting the sucrose back into starch. This is not a complete restorative process. We can only convert some of the sucrose back into starch, and again it is dependent upon what cultivar we are talking about. So these are the kind of things that can be considered, such as environmental factor, like how we recondition these tubers when they come out of the cold storage. We can also look at the mechanism which are responsible for bringing these desirable changes, and how we can reduce those undesirable changes. So generally, I also know that if we store the product at 10 degrees C before cold storage, this also would be reducing this low temperature sweetening effect as well. So this is a little information about how potatoes are important, what are the mechanisms which are involved for the quality of these tubers, how we can do some of the cultural practices or storage practices that can affect the quality of end products.